And good morning. Today is Tuesday, October 7th, and we are being joined, as we are every single month, by Mayor Alyia Gaskins. Mayor, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing all right. I'm a little tired. I tried to keep up with you yesterday and at a couple events in a row, and that in the early morning of trying to turn stories around on those events. Yeah, it made for a long night, early morning.
I know the feeling. There are a lot of good things last night, and then this morning was the state of early childhood convening.
Look at that. So you've already been at an event. Any big takeaways from that?
Yeah. For those who are not aware, this was our first State of Early Childhood convening. It was an opportunity organized by Kids First Years, which is the leading organization working to create a more collaborative and connected early care and education system. Pulled together partners from our businesses, from ACPS, from city agencies, from nonprofits, and was an opportunity to talk through sort of where we've been, but also the challenges we face in terms of making sure that every young person has access to high quality early care experiences, making sure that our providers, many of who are living paycheck to paycheck, are able to get sustainable wages, making sure that we're looking at diversified options, recognizing that most people who are in the workforce do not have a 9 to 5 job and you need care at all different times and throughout the day. And then also making sure that we're prioritizing additional supports and investments, especially for young people who have special needs or need more specific types of care and support.
I feel like, I was looking at the calendar of events coming up for the next couple months, and there's I don't like to say first ever, I like to say inaugural. There's the inaugural State of the Arts in the city. We've recently had Economic Summit. I feel like we're having a lot of, for the first time, summits or gatherings. Why are these important, and kind of whose direction are these coming from?
That's a great question. So I would say they're important because as a city, the only way we can continue to be the place that so many of us love to live, work, play, and engage is if we are intentional about planning for now and planning for the future. And so these summits, I think, are intentional conversations for us to look at the data, hear our residents' stories and experiences, understand what we've done that's working, but honestly begin to surface maybe some of the things that we're doing that aren't working that we need to stop, and then also to surface new ideas. I think the reality is we are all operating, whether you're in the arts, healthcare, whatever the industry is, in new and uncertain times, and that's going to require new strategies. And so it's the perfect time for the conversation. In terms of where these conversations are originating from or who's directing them, I think it depends. For the economic development conversations, that was a direct ask of the council, initially put in through a budget ad from Councilman Chapman, from the recognition that we want to be a council where our legacy is helping to improve the economic strength of the city. I think the conversation on the arts came directly from our arts and cultural organizations, saying that like we need to come together now. We need to understand where we are and then how the city can invest and support us moving forward. For the early childhood conversation, that was led by Kids First Years. So I think it bubbles up from a mix of community and city partnerships.
And I want to give credit because just to all of them, because too often these days it seems like decisions are made, or group decisions are made, or preconceived notions or whatever it may be are made before there's even a conversation. Just look back to last week's school board city council meeting. So I want to highlight that these are a great opportunity for people to participate in, and these conversations. It's nice to see and report on, and there actually being a conversation on these things before a decision is made, and it's not just top down from residents on, hey, this is what we are doing regarding this. It's, hey, come be a part of it before we make a decision. I know often the city gets poked fun of a little bit about all the surveys and conversations they have about things, but as a newcomer, only here for 4 years, I find it very refreshing and just enlightening just to see the conversations play out over so long.
I mean, I think one thing that I have come to realize is if you want to be engaged, there are no shortage of conversations and opportunities for you to get feedback. Whether you do that through a formal process, like coming to one of these meetings or coming to a council town hall, or you send a 311 or a message to the council to just elevate your ideas. I think there's obviously, and there will always be ways that we can improve to make sure that those outlets, that more people know about them, that they are in the language or the culture and engagement opportunities that people need to reach the diversity of our community. But at the end of the day, I think we have been really intentional as a council in pushing forward multiple modes, from in-person to online surveys to phone calls to text feedback, just to try to make sure people know that the decisions we make are not just things we're doing on a whim, but they're grounded in data, they're grounded in evidence, and they're grounded in people and the ideas that we're hearing from the people of this city.
Sometimes I was having this conversation, I think, with somebody from Visit Alexandria last night, as well as the chamber, maybe somebody from the city. It's just sometimes there's information overload, and sometimes it's hard to pick what we're going to discuss today. It's hard to discuss what we're going to put in newsletters and what we're going to share in press releases. And sometimes I think things get missed a little bit, and that's what I try to use this opportunity to highlight. Yesterday, at the ADP meeting, you talked about Alexandria First, which people can read all about the meeting on ALXnow. But Alexandria First is something that I think more residents and more business owners just need to hear more about. I guess I've heard about it twice now because I heard about it at a press conference a couple of weeks ago. But just wanted to take a minute to kind of really shine a light on that, because I felt like it played out also that theme last night at the show premiere down at Cooper Mill, and kind of talking about small businesses, and it's also putting Alexandria first. So just wondering if we could spend a couple minutes on that.
Sure. So one of the things that we have tried to make clear to the public is that when we do economic development, we do it based on a set of guiding principles. I won't go through all of them, but they're things like making sure economic development is a catalyst that spurs other opportunities, making sure that we do nothing that negatively impacts our bond rating or our economic position as a city, trying to move forward in diversifying our tax base so we're not heavily reliant on residential property owners only. And another piece is making sure that economic development benefits the residents of Alexandria. And so as part of that principle, AEDP, in conversation with other business leaders and with residents and with the city council, have been thinking about how do we get more specific on that community benefit. And this is where Alexandria First comes in, recognizing that whether we are attracting a new business or we're retaining a business, they are a part of a larger ecosystem within our city. And we want to make sure that there are ripple effects and benefits from that. And so when we announced the retention and expansion of systems planning and analysis, as part of that agreement, they signed kind of an Alexandria First commitment. What that means is, one, they're going to be doing, we map it out so it's specific to the industry and how they can help. But in this case, they are a national defense strategy partner. And so they are going to be partnering with our schools across the city to help provide STEM education, opportunities, internships, and mentorship programs so that we are building a pipeline of Alexandria's future workers who are prepared to go into STEM careers. The other thing they're going to do is when they are planning meetings or bringing in new partners or hosting convenings, really thinking about and making a commitment to using Alexandria-based businesses to help with that work. That may be everything from the spaces they choose, the food they cater in, the event planners that they partner with, the AV techs, and the overall goal and intent across all of this is that your Alexandria community, your other businesses, your other residents, your other partners are who you go to first when you're thinking about ways to continue to grow and do business within the city. And so we hope to expand that as we create additional economic development partnerships.
I thought it was important. I got home last night from the second event, and I was talking to my wife about it, who is my professional sounding board. And she's like, "No way, that's awesome! Like, how come I don't know about that?" I'm like, "Why don't you know about that? You're under the same roof." And I've heard it a couple times, but I think it's really neat. And I encourage everybody. Last night, Roberto from Cornerstone Craftsman spoke after you and just talked about And I'm going to follow up with him just about the impact of investing in our children and the community, and where they can go and the positions they can fill and the businesses they can open and everything they can do by even making them first. I thought it was a really great point that he made last night. Of course, doing all this. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was going to say my hope would be like taking that story of Cornerstone Craftsman, that it's not just these partnerships, but soon we have targets for like local hiring and job development, and making sure that then we have some key targets we can hold ourselves accountable to. So then we are truly intentional about ensuring all of our residents, especially our minority owned businesses, our young people, like they can point to, if not for that business coming in, I would not have this job, or I would not have been exposed to this opportunity.
And it's so important that we're having this conversation right now, because it's kind of, well, it's supporting Alexandria's economy, and we're building our own infrastructure here where we don't need to rely necessarily so much on what's happening across the river. But with that said, there is a lot happening across the river. Of course, we have a shutdown. We're a week in. I know the city was kind of ahead of it. I was at the city council meeting last week before the shutdown went into effect at midnight. And I know you were all talking about resources that will be available and the website being set up. Just kind of talk about what it's doing to the city, and also, resources available.
Yep. So I think most people know this, but as of October 1st, federal agencies are not able to legally spend money without appropriations from Congress, and they have to stop all non-essential work. So that's essentially, we've entered into a shutdown. While we cannot predict as a city how long this will last, you're right, we wanted to be really proactive in how we think about what the impacts will be to our community. We are a city that our success and our community is deeply intertwined with the federal government. I think I've said on this program before, we have almost 16,000 federal workers who are working full and part-time jobs. We have a number of government contractors and other industries that work very closely with the federal government. And so we've been thinking about this in two ways. First and foremost is like, what is the impact of this shutdown on our people? Every furlough, every RIF, that is a person in our community who may be then making the choice between food to buy for their children, prescriptions to fill, paperwork they might have been waiting on. And so we've put together a resource page. You can find it. It's right on the front page of our website that kind of goes through everything from housing assistance to food assistance to even payment plans for property taxes and so forth. And thank you for pulling this up. But really kind of breaking down how can we help in the different areas where we know people are facing the greatest uncertainty. And so I would encourage anyone to go to that page. I know we've also had a number of people on property taxes were due earlier this week. We had a number of people who reached out through 311. That's another space. So even if you're struggling to find what you need on the website, shoot us a direct note. We'll get you in touch with finance. We'll get you in touch with the appropriate person and kind of be your guide and support through this process. The other way that we've been thinking about it is just kind of impacts on city services and so forth. At this time, everything is operating as normal. We haven't seen any direct impacts on our ability to operate the government. We are being mindful and watching of any potential grants that might be at risk or funding that we need to be accounting for. But the goal is to use that very webpage that you were on to update the public as we know things so that everyone else is kind of along the same page as us.
And for those who don't watch the city council meetings or attend them, I know that under the city council's direction, you have all asked the city manager to provide a regular update on kind of the state of economy under what's going on in DC. So there were updates continuing on there. I find them very enlightening of what's going on, and I know as well as council members' updates. Whether it's evictions, you talked about evictions at last meeting, or homelessness, or unemployment rates. I know you were all watching that very closely and getting updates every month.
The goal is that I've given the direction to the manager, the first legislative meeting of the month, to provide a state of the economy that highlights both sort of local pressures and challenges we might be facing, regional as well as national, covering everything from housing market to tariffs to unemployment. The goal being that, we are getting ready to go into budget. Budget doesn't just start next year, it starts now. And so how do we understand the context that we are operating in? How do we start to think now of potential solutions so that as we make kind of the biggest decision we have every year about how we're going to steward limited resources, we're doing that as informed as possible.
That conversation gets going a little bit more tonight. I was talking to the city manager a little bit yesterday at the event about the super exciting CIP meeting and capital improvement plans, programs, whatever it may be. You guys have a meeting later today about it, and kind of decide what's on the table and what's off the table.
I love that you called it super exciting because I don't know that everyone agreed with me on this. But at the end of last year's budget, I put forth a memo with the full support of my colleagues that really outlined the fact that as our city is growing and our needs become more complex, when we are in the middle of our budget deliberations from February to April, often these big ticket items come up and there's not a lot of time to discuss that. Whether that was the discussion about a new middle school, whether that's, a West End recreation center or arts and cultural facility. I think there were even other questions around new fire stations and rec centers and libraries, the future of our homeless shelter. And so the intent with this meeting is we cannot do everything and we cannot do everything at the same time. How do we take a look at what are all of those major capital improvement projects? Where do they currently fall within within our planning? What are the projects that are not yet on that list that maybe we need to start thinking about now? And can we engage in an exercise to understand with the community, are there projects that need to shift either forward or backward? Are there projects that maybe were a priority 20 years ago and they're not as much now? Are there ways we would do certain projects differently, either for cost savings or greater resiliency or effectiveness? So it is the first of what I hope will be many conversations, but the goal is to start now so that when we are in February, we actually not only have a better understanding of the big picture, we might even have some criteria for like how you prioritize different projects or how you think about that shift.
Yeah, and I know there's a budget retreat coming up on November 1st as well. So it's certainly hard to believe that I guess it's always budget season. I've quickly learned here, but I guess I'll just throw it out there, for those who are, often get their pitchforks out for the big items, like a new middle school or a new pump station or any other big project. When do you want to hear from them the most? What meeting is most important to them? When should they come advocate for themselves?
That's a great question.
That's two.
Yeah, I know that's like several.
Yeah.
So I guess I would say I fundamentally believe there's no wrong time to reach out. Like that's just my own principle. If there's something on your heart and there's something keeping you up at night, send it now. There is no perfect time to engage. I'd say with that being said, if it is around kind of major, budgetary things that have major budget impacts, I think November, right before we go into our retreat, is a great time. Because while we will not be deciding this project or that project or sort of mapping out the budget, what we are doing is engaging in a conversation with the manager to say, as he prepares the budget, these are the things we want to see surfaced or prioritized. And so I think having resonant feedback as we set those priorities is critical. And then as we go through the budget, there are, I think last time we added in an additional hearing, we added in a town hall. So there will be many formal and structured engagements, and we'll make sure people know about that through e-news, the website, and social media. But honestly, like I said, if it's on your mind now and you remember today, send it today. We have ways of cataloging and capturing all that information.
And just a reminder for those watching that the school board will be going through kind of the same process over the next several months. So if it's education related or something under their purview, make sure that you're reaching out to them and participating in their meetings. I know it is, it takes a lot of time, but there are a lot of opportunities to get your priorities or your opinion out there.
And I would just encourage people as we go through this, if you put yourself in the mind of the mayor or the council member, we are trying to think about how to govern for a whole city. And so there may be a project you're really passionate about, and that's great. And we want to hear about that. But I think as a community, we have to be thinking about what's the intersection of that project with all of our other priorities. When we do a new housing development, that has implications for the stormwater and the infrastructure underneath that project and how those pipes connect to other pipes. It has implications for our schools and sort of where any children generated by that project might go. It has implications for police and fire and how we're able to respond and deliver the services that are necessary to maintain the quality of life around there. It has implications for our parks. And so I think sometimes I've heard people say, well, why don't you just do this? Or why can't you put all your money here? And it's not that easy. It is really like that old, what is it, Sim City? It's like that old game of trying to figure out how do all the puzzle pieces fit together? And how do we not make any of these decisions in a vacuum, but that we make a decision that also allocates resources that may not be needed today, but might be needed 3 years from now, but are essential to the success of that project that you're focused on.
Speaking of projects, as well as big ticket updates or governing for the whole city, I try to write about them and I try to keep people in the know about it, but sometimes it's just easier to hear it from the mayor's mouth. Help us understand the recent decisions or conversations last week regarding, council moving forward with supporting the idea of spending approximately $150,000 on looking at another location for the pump station, as well as kind of your thoughts or, I'd spent a week now, your afterthoughts on the whole DASH and ACPS conversation. I know those are two big topics that could take up 3 hours, but I'm just wondering, now that you've had a week for both items, kind of, if you could just summarize it, how you think about it.
Sure. So I'll start with and I'm very intentional. It is the waterfront flood mitigation project. It is not the pump station project.
I'll make sure I change the wording when I use that.
Yes. And I think that's important because this is a conversation that has been going on since probably 2014. And at the end of the day, it is a conversation about how we address flooding on our waterfront. We are never going to be able to stop flooding completely. But I think if you think about the role of government and the protection of health and safety, we have an obligation and a duty to make progress and to make sure that we are building more resilient infrastructure, especially for a part of our city that every one of us gets to enjoy, not just those who live there or work there or have businesses along the waterfront. It is kind of one of the core pieces of our identity, our community, and public spaces within our city. The project has 3 things that it is trying to address. It's Potomac River backflow in our sewers, it's river water that is overtopping over our bulkheads, and it's heavy rainfall that really overwhelms our streets and our infrastructure. I don't know if you noticed, but yesterday walking back from Cooper Mill, there were multiple places that just had stagnant water sitting there, and that wasn't from a rain that happened yesterday. And so this is what the project is looking at. There are multiple components, from improving the aging bulkheads to replacing the aging pipes to a pump station that would pump water out, that would hold it, filter it, and then pump it back into the Potomac. What the decision or the conversation that I raised at the last council meeting was about is we have been looking at many alternatives for where this pump station could be located and even whether or not it's needed. Everything from, should there be multiple pump stations? Should they be underground? Should we be finding ways to dredge the Potomac? I think I've lost count. There are like 14 or 15 different things we've looked at. All of that is because we want to make sure that the decision we make is one that minimizes impacts as best as possible, but also is a solid investment that carries us into the future. And so we had heard from a number of residents a hope that they wanted to see us look into one of those proposed alternatives further, that being 1 Prince Street. 1 Prince Street has been in the slides. It's been in the conversation for a while now. I think you can go back to that January meeting where we had an hour update on this project. And so what the goal is that we will take, I think, 2 months and $1,000 to take another look at this site and make sure we really understand. It's one thing to look at drawings and think that that's a great place to move it. It's another thing to know, is it technically feasible? Does the engineering, does everything from construction impacts to the other things we need to evaluate actually make this a viable source? And so it will look at that, it will look at cost, it will look at some of the other questions and concerns that residents have raised. And then eventually it will come back to the council. And the council will have the opportunity to look not just at that site, but as I mentioned, there were many other alternatives evaluated. And then there's also the current proposal as well, and begin to come up with a decision for how we move forward. At the end of the day, what I want to be clear with the public on is, if you know nothing else, my colleagues and I do not wake up to destroy the city. Like, we don't take this lightly, and we are being thoughtful, which is why we were willing to engage in this pause. Number two, we have to do something. Even when you look at our credit report from Moody's that we just got, yeah, we got a AAA, but it also says in there one of our greatest vulnerabilities is our flooding risk. So like, we have to, for the future longevity and planning of the city, be intentional about how we address these things, not just in Old Town, but there are going to be big projects in Del Rey and other parts of the community that will have disruption, but they're disruption to move us towards a better future. And third, I feel like we have to have a comprehensive solution. That might involve some green infrastructure and other things as well. So if you're curious about this, know that no decision has been made. Know that the conversation continues. You can type in waterfront flood mitigation project and you can see more community engagement opportunities. You can make suggestions. And so we welcome that and look forward to your engagement. On the ACPS conversation, I think my takeaway is that at the end of the day, we have limited resources. And we as a community, and especially in partnership with our schools, have to be thinking about creative ways to save money and think about creative ways to better serve our community. When I think about transportation, if you were I mentioned this at the meeting, if you ran a company and there were 2 units of your company that are doing similar things, you would ask the question of, how could you do this differently? Why are we duplicating things? In this case, you have one system that just transports children and another system that transports children and many other people throughout our city. You have over 1,000 young people that are already taking the Dash bus already. And so I think we have an obligation to ask those questions and see where efficiencies and opportunities would be. I think ultimately where we ended is our bodies were maybe not ready to engage in this conversation. And there's more work we need to do to figure out how we have those difficult conversations so that we are operating from a place of what's possible, what's evidence-based, and what can we do to hold ourselves more accountable to better outcomes for children, families, and all those who use our services in the city, versus kind of being stuck in process and how we collaborate.
And no conversation is ever completely over. So who knows? It could always come back up here in budget season.
Yes. I mean, I think the next big conversation, nothing's over, but the next one I think we'll be pivoting to is the long-range educational facilities plan.
Yes, and that was at the end of the last meeting. You kind of started talking about it, and there is great progress being made. I tried to include the charts that showed actually what's been done since the last time the long-range plan was. It's a working document, so it's always a live document. But for those who things in government move slowly, but you can actually see progress in that report. So,
yes.
A couple questions. Many of them are infrastructure based, which I'm sure what your inbox normally gets filled with most of the time. And I'll try to hurry up because I know you have a full office this morning. Your children are always so well behaved. I must give you credit for that.
Yes. Hold on 1 second.
It's okay.
Thank you. We had a water spill. So.
It's okay. It's okay. Just as I was saying, they're always so well behaved. But a couple questions, you could point us in the right direction. Might be 311, it might be the city's website, but I'm going to run through a couple of them.
Okay.
Somebody asks, why are we building an apartment building so close to the road instead of widening the Telegraph Road exit off of Duke? Somebody at Good Shepherd Lutheran Church talks about, the Braddock Road lanes and, the proposal or the changes that could be coming with the Braddock Road Trail access corridor improvement projects. And, you know, if you take away the lanes, then there's no place for our buses and more parking. One more infrastructure: as the city continues to improve its multimodal transportation infrastructure through projects ranging from bike lanes to bus lanes, city has hesitated to adopt policy of separation of land uses. Places of businesses still being intentionally miles away from residential buildings. How can the city address structure of city planning from the early 1900s? So a lot of infrastructure stuff. Where should this feedback be going? Where should these questions be going? When people think about this stuff, where should they be sending it?
Yep. So let me try and take them from the beginning. So the first one related to the project that is going up on Duke Street, where the old Land Rover used to be. I think the simple answer to that question is, when we think about housing and housing development, one of the things we know is that the best place to put housing is next to transit and next to areas where you are connected to jobs and opportunity. In this case, this is a project that's less than a mile away from the King Street Metro, is going to be supported by Dash and BRT, is walkable to many different job centers and opportunities. And so that is a key piece of this project. When we were working on approving this project, there were a number of community meetings and public hearings in which we actually did talk about the Telegraph Access Road. And we talked about sort of the role the city has and our ability to make decisions on that road, but also the connection to VDOT and the state decisions that have to be there. I would just say to anybody, for every project, we do parking studies, we do traffic studies. We don't think about these in a vacuum. We are really trying to think through, how do you mitigate any unintended consequences, and how do you make sure we still maintain movement as well? Because that's important for the people who are passing the building, but it's also for those who choose to live here. They want to be able to get out of their property as well. For the Braddock Road one, I would say this is actually one that has not come to council yet. I think we're early in the engagement stages, and there's probably several months before this even comes to us. So I can't speak directly to that project. I'm still coming up to speed. I would say if either Ryan can send the question, or if the resident wants to send it in, I can make sure that that gets to Transportation and Environmental Services and the staff member who is leading engagement on that project, so that it's cataloged and captured.
I'm going to stop 1 second because I think they're accepting feedback right now. And these are the type of things to make sure. I believe, I could be wrong. I believe we shared something where they're hosting a meeting, or they're doing a survey, or doing something. But I just wanted to point out to the person that this is when it's important to provide this feedback to the opportunities that are provided, because I imagine that all of this goes in front of council or people who are making these decisions. So it was accepted here, but make sure you also share it there, as well as everybody else. If you have opinion on these things, make sure you share it publicly when those opportunities are out there.
We do. You may not see all of that presented in a council meeting, but we do, for some of the surveys, we can request the raw data and we can get all of those answers. For letters that get sent to the clerk, I can tell you Miss Gloria I ask for paper copies because I'm old school, but she prints them out and I see all of the letters. I know what people are including. So everything you do send in is tracked. The other process that we have implemented this year is we get a summary each week from ALX311 that tells us how many people wrote in about certain issues. So that's the other reason why I tell people send it there, because then I can go to staff and say, you know what, I've gotten 15 inquiries about Braddock Road. That's more than any other thing we've gotten this week. Can council get a briefing on that earlier in the project than later? So it really helps there as well. The last one, to the person who talked about planning, actually a lot of our planning has changed. I mean, I think about how many recent approvals we've had for businesses that are right on the edge of neighborhoods, or even within communities, and thinking about different uses for spaces, whether that's things like new office to residential conversions or other projects that we're working on. So I would encourage this person to really follow along with any of our small area plan updates that we're doing, and elevate sort of your interest in seeing some of those different policies. I think another one would be with our economic development strategy, we're going to be thinking about what are ways we can grow the small business community in our city. So if you have thoughts about land use policies that might be helpful to support more business attraction and development, we welcome you to send that in as well. So if you shoot me a 311, I'll get you to the right person or get you connected to the right planning process to weigh in.
And I apologize. I didn't take anybody's names. I just copied the questions over. So I normally
Okay.
cite who asked these questions, but I have one more quick one that I want. Well, two more, but one's a quick one. This person says, I constantly have to push my stroller in the street because people's cars are sticking beyond the driveways to completely block the sidewalk. And I'll kind of summarize it there. You know, when people see something like this that's consistently happening, or something like this, is this a good use of 311, or is it the non-emergency line with the police department? You know, it's a safety, but I know 311 also goes to the non-emergency police department. So I just want to make sure I acknowledge that one because it sounds like it could be a safety.
So for this one, I would still say 311. And I say that because I think what the person is raising is there's an immediate, like we need to get parking enforcement out there and they shouldn't be blocking. But there's also a long term, which is like if you're constantly having to do this, then we need to be doing more, not just on enforcement, but I know some communities have talked to us about daylighting, where like that first spot actually would be blocked off so that it's easier for cars to see the pedestrian coming, but it also helps advance our Vision Zero goals of just making it safer for pedestrians and others to move throughout the community. So it is helpful for us to know the immediate action to get the car out the way, but also like this is a problem at this particular area, and here's maybe a infrastructure or design solution we could do to improve that in the long term.
I have one, and I normally, yeah, I'll bring it up just because I think it's been 2 years, but you know, a lot of the times, if you, not you, but if people go to the Saturday sessions with City Council, you'll see people making many remarks about Gaza, Palestine, and the like. And I'm bringing it up because I think it's been 2 years since that incident occurred, and I'm just wondering what it is that City Council can do, what you do with all of that information that is spoken to by residents. You know, small city here in the United States, what impact can they have, and is there anything you're considering doing? And I just wanted to bring it up. So I got a bunch of questions on it, and because it's the 2 years, I figured 2 year horrible anniversary. I figured I'd bring it up and just see if you had any take.
No, I appreciate the question because at the end of the day, I think we are human. And anybody who's watching what's going on, my heart breaks for what is happening in Gaza. My heart, and I have reached out to many of those who have come from on the Saturday meetings and have asked for meetings. And I know I'm engaging with several right now to really talk through then, like, what is the conversation we need to be having as a city? What are the things the city can do? And what are the things the city just can't do? Because as a local government, there are limits to what we have authority and power over. But also importantly, how do we facilitate a conversation that recognizes we have neighbors in this city from both Palestine and Israel? And so what does that conversation look like? What is Alexandria's role? So I would just say to people that while you may not see us engage in every speaker or question that comes back, it doesn't mean that we're not intentionally having those conversations. And I think there are a great group of our residents who have been willing to sit with me, sit with some of my colleagues to lean into uncomfortable, emotional, difficult conversations, but one that fully recognize that human rights are not things that should be taken for granted and that we have a conversation that we have to have and cannot ignore as a city.
And I, just for those who aren't clear, I just want to remind people that, you know, when people do speak at those meetings, it's intentional that City Council doesn't react or respond or get into a debate. They cannot discuss items or get into items that are not on the agenda. That is with any board or commission in the city. So in case people don't know that, I know people have busy lives. I just wanted to point that out, that the conversation isn't happening up there. It's more of a listening session of what your concerns are more than a conversation. So on a little bit more of a positive note, this morning, Alexandria landed #3 spot on Condé Nast Traveler's Best Small Cities list. And yeah, another list, another day. And DC is up there at #6. We placed behind Charleston, South Carolina again, Santa Fe, New Mexico, and we were ahead of Savannah, Georgia, Honolulu, Hawaii. So pretty neat. More than 757 people voted. Any reaction?
That's amazing. It's breaking news to me too. I hadn't seen that one. But what you know what is funny? I did have a meeting earlier today. The Urban Institute just recently put out a study that highlights the impacts of sort of the shifts in the federal government and what's happening and the impacts on Alexandria. And I had a chance to speak to one of their researchers. And I said, while we're feeling impacts, what are the strengths that are going to help us get through this? Or what are the things that keep us being a place where people want to stay? And some of the things that they named were like the quality of life and the quality of our place. Two, the uniqueness of like the ecosystem we've created that is really built on sort of building the capacity of our partners, creating collaborative tables where there are many opportunities for engagements. And then three, being a place where people can come and have fun. Like we are, whether that's, Scottish Walk or Pride Festival or all of these things we do, we are intentional about spaces for joy and engagement. So it's great to see us on more lists, but it's also important, just an important reminder that those lists are a recognition of the very community that each of us step in and try and help create every day. That makes it a fun, great place to not just visit, but live.
And it extends the streak of top 5 placements to 8 consecutive years. And people do use them to book travel and tourism. I encourage anybody to go back and look at my coverage of Visit Alexandria's meeting, where more than $1 billion has been spent by tourists, which ultimately, at the end of the day, helps keep your taxes down. I think the city manager said about $840 or $850 per year. It's saving, the average resident taxpayer. So pretty interesting stuff. And I use it when I'm traveling. So they influence things. Mayor, I know we're running a little late. Was there anything that you wanted to get to today?
I think you covered everything. All the hot
Looking,
topics. I can't think of anything else right now. There's the CIP meeting tonight, so folks can come in person or tune in for that. Then our October meeting will be on the 14th, our October legislative meeting. So we'll get the economic update then. And I think we'll have a couple other report outs happening as well. Other big things, I know there'll be the Del Rey Halloween parade and some other fun events. So October is shaping up to be a really great month.
What's the Halloween costumes this year?
God, Ryan, you asked me this last time, and I still don't have a costume.
I asked
I'm
you in
working through it.
September, huh? Yeah,
Yes.
probably.
Sometimes being the best mayor means that my ability to put together the best Halloween costumes for my kids takes a little bit of a backseat, but we will have something October 31st. We will be prepared.
I should have looked at my notes. It's not on my notes, so that's just improving. Asking you, I was gonna ask you to pick the best neighborhood for trick or treating, but I'm not gonna do that to you.
Oh, I would say Cameron Station. I mean, it's Cameron Station.
Okay.
Like the number of houses you can hit. Also, many houses, pro tip, they not only have treats for kids, they have treats for parents. And so it is a really fun community event.
Excellent. All right. Well, maybe I'll see you there.
Great.
All right, Mayor. Well, thank you very much for taking the time today. I'll see you later on for some exciting CIP meeting.
That sounds great. Well, thank you for the questions, and thank you to all who tuned in.
All right, and we'll follow up on some of them. That is Mayor Alyia Gaskins. We appreciate her for joining us. She does this every month with us. If you missed any portion of the conversation, want to watch again, want to share it, all available on ALXnow.com. Thanks for watching.